Can you imagine the world's largest hydropower project down the Himalaya mountain? The whole country was losing their minds over the recent Yarlung River hydropower project kicking off. This river starts high up on the Tibetan plateau, right near Mount Kailash in the Himalayas, that sacred peak worshipped by Buddhists, Hindus, and others. It's basically the highest major river in the world, beginning at around 4,500 meters. That's about 15,000 feet above sea level. From there, it cuts eastward across southern Tibet, running parallel to the Himalayas for over 1,000 miles. Then, near the border of India and Tibet, it takes a wild U-turn. This is the famous Great Bend of the Yarlung, where it plunges through the world's deepest canyon, even deeper than the Grand Canyon, before finally turning south into India, where it becomes the Brahmaputra River. This river packs unbelievable power, and it's a perfect choice for hydropower station. The initial idea of building a power station here pops up 20 to 30 years ago. Feasibility studies and preliminary research wrap up about a decade ago. The project gets the official green light 5 years ago. And the groundbreaking ceremony, that's happening today. What you see is the Lower Yarlung project kicking off in July 2025. But in fact, way back in the 1970s, experts were already dreaming about tapping the Yarlung Tsangpo's hydropower potential. Initial development started in 2000. By 2014, the Zhangmu hydropower station was up and running on the main stem. And since then, hydropower stations like Bayu, Dagu, Jieshu, Jiacha, Lengda, Zhongda, and Langzhen followed along the river. As for today's Lower Yarlung project in Medog County, research on that specific project began around 2009. By 2020, it was explicitly written into the 14th five-year plan to implement hydropower development on the lower reaches of the Yarlung River. Fast forward to 2024, official documents talked about speeding up the clean energy base in southwest China, and they gave the formal approval for the Lower Yarlung project. So, building hydropower on the Yarlung isn't exactly new for us. But this time it's different. First, the price tag is mind-boggling, officially planned at 1.2 trillion yuan. That's about $170 billion USD. They claim there's never been a single project anywhere, anytime, funded at this scale. And they've even set up a special state-owned enterprise, the Yarlung Group, run at the vice-ministerial level, just to manage this thing. It ranks 22nd out of the 99 central state-owned enterprises directly under the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission. That's heavyweight. Second, the project has crazy high-level backing. The groundbreaking ceremony was attended by Premier of the State Council. Before this, only 2 other projects ever got that honor: the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River and the South-North Water Transfer Project. We can bet that the benefits from the Lower Yarlung project won't just go to a few insiders. Its value, powerful, though maybe not always obvious, is meant to propel the whole society forward. Today, let's dive into 2 big questions about the Lower Yarlung project. How does China dare to tackle such a massive project? Where's the confidence coming from? And what will the Lower Yarlung project actually bring us? The basic idea behind hydropower is simple. You capture the energy from water flowing downhill and use turbines to turn it into electricity. To make this work, you find a canyon, nature's ready-made container, build a dam to block the river, and create a reservoir. That's why you see projects like China's Three Gorges or Baihetan, or the US's Hoover Dam. All rely on canyon terrain to raise the water level and create a massive drop to generate power. The bigger the drop and the more water flowing, the more hydropower potential you have, and the more profitable the project. From this perspective, the Lower Yarlung is arguably the best spot on the planet for hydropower, maybe even unmatched. The raging river takes a huge bend through the canyons of Medog County in Yingqi, Tibet. Get this, in just 200 kilometers of river, the elevation drop is a staggering 2,000 meters. That drop alone is insane, but China's hydropower engineers are thinking even bigger. Our plan is to cut the bend straight. On the Yarlung in Medog, instead of letting the water slog through 200 kilometers to drop 2,000 meters, which is weak sauce, apparently, we're gonna dig tunnels and aim to cover that entire 2,000 meter drop within just 50 kilometers. Think of it like replacing a winding mountain road with a steep water slide. This is exactly why the Lower Yarlung project is pegged as the world's largest hydropower project. Just this single project will have an installed capacity between 6,000 megawatts and 81,000 megawatts. At full tilt, it could generate 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually, enough to power 300 million people. Put another way, its output would triple that of 3 gorgeous dams, or replace 5 to 7% of the entire country's coal-fired power generation capacity, roughly equivalent to 300 average-sized coal plants. Of course, pulling off a project like this is insanely difficult. First, the location, deep in the mountains and canyons of the Tibetan Plateau. It's tough even for hardcore hikers to get in there. China is famous for its infrastructure and grit, yet Medog County only got its first road in 2013. And even with that road, it's not great. The geology along the way is incredibly fractured. Driving to Medog is still considered one of the most dangerous routes in China. So step 1 for building a power station here is to upgrade the roads. We need to haul in massive machinery, giant transformers, and turbines. The current roads just won't cut it. Major upgrades are essential. Second, Medog isn't just high altitude. It's right on a major earthquake fault line, prone to massive quakes. Building a power station here demands serious engineering experience to handle any potential disasters. Honestly, earthquakes might be the smaller challenge. The biggest hurdle for big projects on the plateau is the environment itself. High altitude, low air pressure, intense solar radiation, huge day-night temperature swings, dry climate, strong winds. Pouring concrete here, freezing, expansion, cracking, it's all par for the course. And as for cutting off bends and digging dozens of kilometers of diversion tunnels in high-altitude mountains, forget just the complex geology and sheer workload. The equipment needed faces massive technical barriers. Oh, and let's not forget the human factor. Protecting workers from altitude sickness and other plateau-related illnesses is absolutely critical. So putting it all together, we can say the Lower Yarlung project might just be the most challenging single engineering project humanity has ever attempted. So how does China have the confidence to actually start building this thing? Well, let's take a look. Road building. Tech for highways on the plateau is mature. The Nagpur-Lhasa Expressway, opened in 2021, averages 4,500 meters in altitude across its entire length. If they can build a highway there, places like Myingchi and Medog at lower altitudes should be manageable. Dam construction. Techniques for high-altitude cold concrete are proven. A project called Key Technologies and Applications for Green Roller Compacted Concrete Dam Construction in Complex Conditions of the Tibetan Plateau was nominated for a 2023 Tibet Science and Technology Award. They've got the know-how. Regarding tunnel boring, the TBM. Since solving domestic production of shield tunneling machines around 2008, China has raced ahead in this field. Chinese-made TBMs are now widely used in water conservancy and hydropower projects worldwide. Effort never goes to waste. Progress is made step by step. China's confidence to undertake the Lower Yarlung project is built precisely on the foundation of projects like these, accumulated one by one. Now, who benefits from the Lower Yarlung project? The most immediate short-term benefit of the Lower Yarlung project? It's supercharging the construction industry. When the news broke, the stock market celebrated. Companies in construction, engineering machinery, civil explosives, and water resources/hydropower saw epic gains. Everyone knows the construction sector has had a tough few years. Well, now they're all rubbing their hands together, getting ready. Once construction kicks off, the second wave of winners is definitely Tibet. A project this huge, even with modern tech, will need thousands of people on site daily. Around 200,000 people will likely be directly employed on the project. But when you count all the supporting roles, road builders, cooks, mechanics, cement suppliers, logistics, the number indirectly involved could top 1 million. Tibet's total permanent population is only about 3.6 million. Now imagine dropping in a project that'll take at least a decade, needing 200,000 direct and potentially 1 million indirect participants. This isn't just Tibet has a hydropower project. This is the hydropower project is turbocharging the entire Tibet. Remember how many people got rich during the big infrastructure boom years? Well, the wave hitting Tibet now could be even bigger. The Lower Yarlung project is expected to boost the average Tibetan's annual income by over 30%, add 2.8 billion USD annually to Tibet's fiscal revenue, and drive over 1.4 billion USD in local consumer spending. And when the project finally finishes and starts feeding power into the grid, way more people will benefit. first is the energy security. A big reason China pushes electric vehicles is this exact security concern. If all China's cars ran on gas, we'd be heavily dependent on imported oil. But if they're all electric, that dependence drops dramatically. Imported oil could be used much more for making things like synthetic fibers and plastics, products with longer lifespans, instead of just burning it as fuel. However, while EVs cut oil reliance, they massively increase electricity demand, which often means burning more coal. So we don't just need more power, we need cleaner, renewable sources like solar, wind, and hydropower. That's why these are getting so much attention. Currently, China has the world's largest renewable energy system, but its internal structure needs optimizing. Hydropower only makes up about a fifth of renewable generation, slightly less than wind and way less than solar. But, compared to wind and solar, hydro is much more stable and controllable. Remember that huge blackout in Spain a while back? It was a warning. Green power is good, but without proper regulation and storage systems, you can have big problems. Looking at the Lower Yarlung project through this lens, you see its value. Adding 300 billion kilowatts per year is like adding a huge chunk of safety margin to our power grid. Beyond energy security, the power from the Lower Yarlung project is a major boost for China's AI ambitions. It's well known that the biggest cost in AI is electricity. Training models like ChatGPT costs companies like OpenAI hundreds of millions of dollars annually in power bills. A big chunk of that goes to running the processing chips, and another big chunk goes to cooling the data centers. In the future, when the Lower Yarlung power comes online, it'll be a game changer for Chinese AI companies. You see, the project is expected to reserve 3 billion kilowatt hours of low-cost electricity annually, specifically for use within Tibet. So couldn't companies like Alibaba or Meituan, who rely heavily on data centers, build theirs up on the perpetually cold Qinghai Tibet Plateau? And couldn't companies like Huawei, Xiaomi, or Xiaopeng, who need massive computing power for testing autonomous driving systems, choose to shift that computing load to Tibet? Cheap power plus naturally cold temperatures, Tibet is practically tailor-made for the East Data, West computing strategy. I saw plenty of data centers standing in the Ningxia desert back in the day. Imagine putting them up on the plateau. It'd be even cooler. Thinking even bigger, since these computing centers generate heat, could we capture that waste heat for nearby greenhouses or residential heating? You could build a residential area and some greenhouses right next to a data center. Locals could maintain the servers and grow vegetables in the greenhouses. The Qinghai Tibet Plateau could even become a food basket. Finally, let's talk some geopolitical discussion. When many people hear about this project, they think about our neighbor to the south. A significant number believe the Lower Yarlung project is meant to put a stranglehold on India's water supply, a giant strategic weapon aimed at India. Hearing this, I couldn't help but recall a popular joke. It goes something like this. If the China suddenly holds a brigade-level exercise near the border, the generals of neighboring small countries will be so anxious they can't sleep all night. But if the China suddenly holds an army group-level exercise, those same generals will just roll over and go back to sleep. After all, an exercise that big? It's clearly meant for the Trisolarans. What's that got to do with me? Apply that logic to the Lower Yarlung project. With a price tag of 1.2 trillion yuan, it absolutely cannot be about India. We invest 1.2 trillion yuan because we expect future returns that far exceed that amount. Take a look at the map, folks. Given the state of India's northeast region, it's seriously not worth China dumping 1.2 trillion yuan just to squeeze their neck. So what will the electro-state look like? If you dig into recent headlines, things get more interesting. Back in April 2025, the world's only fourth-generation borium-based molten salt reactor started running in Minkin County, Gansu Province. They're already ramping up for bigger industrial use. Then, on July 12th, over in Ordos, Inner Mongolia, the State Uranium-1 project pumped out its first barrel of uranium. This is China's biggest, most advanced, highest-standard natural uranium production project right now. Just 2 days later, July 14th, down in Guangdong, Unit 6 of the CGN Lufeng nuclear plant had its reactor dome hoisted into place. That's the lid on the Huawang 1 reactor building, meaning they're done with major construction, and now it's all about installing the gear. 5 days after that, July 19th, the groundbreaking ceremony for the Lower Yarlung hydropower project happens in Ningxi, Tibet. And 3 days after that, July 22nd, China Fusion Company gets officially launched in Shanghai. Look at that timeline, all happening in July. So here's what we've got. The East is pushing fusion power. The South and North are building fission reactors. The West is cranking up massive hydro. There's an old saying, peek at one spot to see the whole leopard. See one falling leaf to know autumn is coming. Put these pieces together, the electro-state is growing. So picture this future. What if China ends up generating a huge amount of electricity? An amount way more than it even needs. I'm Sam. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share with your friends. Catch you later.